So Conor McGregor has recently taken to social media to explain himself for why he pulled out of UFC 303's main event headliner against Michael Chandler. And there's been a lot of speculation leading up to this, and we finally hear from Conor himself, right? The reports were coming out from Ariel Helwani basically saying, if you could read between the lines, there is an injury from Conor McGregor. And then eventually we hear from Ariel and Dana White himself. Conor is hurt and pulls out of UFC 303's main event. Now, nonetheless, there's been a lot of speculation, right? Leading up to it, it was contract negotiations, it was an injury, it was this, it was that. And on my channel, I'd even mentioned, I think that this is going to be an injury that has to do with his toe, with his foot, because I had broken a big toe myself before, and it could be a lot more serious, than what people may think. And I know that everyone in the MMA community is coming after him, but this doctor right here, Brian Sutterer, he breaks down exactly what happened here with Conor McGregor's toe. He's going to basically diagnose Conor as if he was a patient, explain exactly what this is and what the timeline is on a potential return for Conor McGregor. Because I know Ariel's out there saying, oh, 2 months, this and that. Let's hear what this doctor has to say. So we're going to go through this and break it down.
I would say minimally displaced oblique fracture of the fifth proximal phalanx of the pinky toe. By far the vast majority of lesser toe fractures, meaning the second through the fifth toe, do not require surgery. Typically only if it's like an open dislocation, if it's severely comminuted, meaning a bunch of different little pieces, or severely displaced. Those are the only times you're gonna have to do surgery, but it's very rare to need a surgery for an isolated lesser toe fracture, and I do not suspect that McGregor needed surgery for this one.
Now that's good, right? So obviously anytime surgery is not involved, then the timeline's not going to be as crazy. So that's kind of good news there if you're a Conor McGregor fan or you want to see Conor McGregor back in the octagon, which I feel like as MMA fans, we all do.
The things that we'll look at externally, I had to clear out the bruising here because YouTube doesn't like that as much, is whether or not there's any rotation. So we talk about the displacement from where the bones are aligned, but is there any angulation or rotation? And so one of the ways you can look at that externally is this pinky toe curled under or wrapping under, or is it angulated off in this direction, suggesting more instability in the toe? For here, we don't see anything like that for McGregor when he shared this picture. So again, another factor that makes non-operative, just basic non-surgical management, almost certainly a possibility here. To treat a fracture like this, I'm gonna put somebody in potentially a post-operative shoe, just a rigid, flat-soled shoe, for maybe 2 to 4 weeks, really depending on how bad their pain is. But there's not a lot that you have to aggressively do to immobilize a fracture like this. A lot of it comes...
Now, see, that's my thing. Guys, in that video that I mentioned, I'll link down below, that picture that was floating around, that everyone was speculating, oh, Conor's trolling, he's this and that. I'm like, I noticed multiple pictures that he had been posting on social media, and including that one, how he was in slides or he was in slippers, whatever you want to call it, that you just slide right on. Because I'm like, man, I've damaged my big toe before, or a toe, broken toes. Like, if you've done that, it is very painful to put a shoe on, which is why I was like, maybe I'm kind of stretching here, maybe I'm reaching, and then come to find out, boom. So that's what they're going to do. There's not a whole lot you could do for a broken toe, but you hear what this doctor's saying, man, it all is kind of lining up to that.
Comes down to level of pain. Now, certainly, if you go out and you kick, you run, you jump, you're going to have worsening pain. You might move that fracture more and make it harder to heal. But this isn't something that, would even require like a walking boot. You're going to do some rigid footwear immobilization for a short time, and should be a fracture that heals well in that average, 4 to 8, average 6 week sort of time frame. So that's the last question then, is was this an injury warranted of McGregor withdrawing? Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. It's not a fracture that's going to have that drastic of an effect on just your mobility compared to, say, a great toe or a big toe fracture where you're...
So you hear what he's saying here, right? You get the 2 months basically is what you're looking at here, right? And that's kind of what we've heard Ariel Helwani say. That's what we've heard other people say. But we're hearing it from a doctor here. And he's even saying, look, this is definitely something that's going to affect your performance, clearly. And we know Conor McGregor, what happened to that left leg before the break a toe here. Conor McGregor loves to throw those front kicks up the middle. He likes to utilize head kicks. He likes to utilize leg kicks. And if you have a severely damaged toe, not only is it going to affect your movement, but it's also going to affect your ability to kick. So he's essentially going to go in there and just basically box, with Michael Chandler, who is a very dangerous and explosive opponent. So I understand the criticism of everybody. Be like, oh, he pulled out because of a picky toe. But until you've severely damaged a toe before, I mean, it's kind of crazy, especially a guy who's coming off of such a crazy injury, and it's like you're going in there against a dangerous guy like Michael Chandler. So to me, what this doctor's saying here, and again, when a doctor says something, they're always going to kind of take the safer route to a degree. But as fighters, out there, you see the community reacting in a negative way. But again, feel free to comment your opinions down below, guys, because I want to hear what you all think. Should Conor have pulled out? Is this crazy? Like, what do you guys think?
Pushing off, and you're putting a lot more weight through it. But it's enough of a thing that's going to affect and throw off your ability to, number one, continue your training and keep up your cardio, but then number two, feel confident with your footwork, especially when you're dealing with an athlete who's coming back from a broken leg. You're going to have a lower threshold for being affected by an injury. So yes, it's a pinky toe. I'm sure he's going to get all kinds of hate online about withdrawing because of a broken pinky toe. But as pinky toe fractures go, that's a pretty good one. And again, when you're coming back at that stage where if you win, you potentially get a title shot. If you lose, you're still kind of spiraling around in this mediocrity level of the competition. I would not go into it with any sort of level of compromise in the foot. At this...
Exactly. And that's what you even heard what Conor McGregor said. The fans, want to see me at my best. They deserve my best. And you hear what this doctor's saying. I mean, he's a doctor. I don't know how much he watches fighting, if he's a fight fan. But what I do know is his approach is correct here. Like, what is Conor McGregor going to go in there and not be able to move, and he's going to be a sitting duck in front of an aggressive, primed up Michael Chandler who's irritated he had to wait 2 years for a fight? Like, you want to see Conor McGregor at his best. Like, I understand where, and again, one of the reasons Conor's going to be getting so much hate is because of all these years, how he's like, oh, you pull out merchants and my foot was a balloon, and, crapping on RDA for having an injury. So I understand where people are going to come from that angle, but from the specific angle of this is making sense to me.
Stage, it would not have been healed for UFC fight upcoming that he would be going against Chandler, and so he would be going into it with a broken toe, and it doesn't matter with the result if there was a toe fracture or not. It could certainly have affected his performance and certainly affected the rest of his tenure and just upcoming trajectory with the UFC. So I think it was
So again, what he's saying here, right? He's saying that, this is something that isn't just necessarily going to heal. Well, duh, but the point is, when that press conference was postponed, my thoughts all along have kind of been, if this is an injury, this was something that he sustained. He tried to continue to go, right? They postponed the press conference. They're like, look, get this thing looked at, see if you can go. He tried training a little bit, and this just was like, okay, this thing ain't going to work, man. I can't move. I can't throw kicks, whatever the reason is. So I think at that moment, aligning with what this doctor is saying, just trying to compare it to the timeline of the information we had, this is all starting to make a lot more sense.
It's appropriate to withdraw. I don't think you can hold him accountable because yes, it's a toe fracture, but it still is a significant fracture on that outer part of the foot. It's going to hurt. It's going to affect your skill. And so I think he made the appropriate decision. But I agree. This should be something that it depends on how he loses his conditioning with not being able to train, but hopefully, you can certainly still bike. This should be healed within 6 to 8 weeks. And so this is absolutely something that he can still fight later this year, just depending on when they can get a date and he can get his cardio training back up.
So there you go. So you're going to have all these guys out there, in the community, oh, this and that, all these fight experts, guys who have never even been in there and all this and that. When you suffer damaged toes, and I understand people are going to mention, well, Alex Pineda has busted up toes. You've seen him do a lot of boxing recently, right? He hasn't been doing a ton of kicking. So I understand all of that. But you have to understand the position Conor McGregor is in, right? Coming off of 2 losses to Dustin Poirier. He's getting later in his career. He's got all this money. Like, there's really no reason for Conor to head into a fight compromise, especially going in there against a guy who's just an absolute savage, and Michael Chandler. And it sounds like who even knows if Michael Chandler is going to be the opponent at this point in time. But if you enjoyed this video, give it a like, comment down below Notorious so I know you watched the whole thing, and comment your thoughts on what this doctor is saying. Subscribe to the channel and help your boy out. I would appreciate it. See you next time.